I'm someone who gets absolutely fascinated by sound, whether it's the Foley work, the music during a tense sequence, or those digital sound effects that just hit your brain the right way. So naturally, when I heard about a horror film that puts audio at the center of everything, I said, say less, I'm in. But man, was I not prepared for just how much this movie was going to pull me in. Because while I was sitting there in the theater, listening to these haunting sounds with a grin on my face, I realized something. This movie doesn't just use sound to spook you, it uses sound to trigger your primal fears. While the theater is completely silent, you can feel the tension in the room because of how visceral the experience becomes. The visuals are disturbing, but the sound, that's the thing that crawls under your skin. And honestly, I haven't felt like that watching a horror movie in a long time. So join me today on this descent as we dive into what makes the sound an undertone, the kind that sticks with you long after the movie ends. Sound has always been one of the most powerful weapons horror has. Think about it. Before you even see the killer, before the camera reveals anything, you usually hear it first. A floorboard creaks, something drags across the ground, a mirror breaks, or you hear breathing somewhere in the room that definitely isn't yours. Your brain immediately goes into survival mode trying to figure out what that sound means. And good horror directors understand that anticipation is everything. Sometimes what you hear is way scarier than what you actually see. In Undertone, we follow Evie, who hosts a paranormal podcast and lives with her dying comatose mother. Her only real connection to the outside world is her podcast co-host, Justin, whose voice is heard but never seen. The film's plot is driven by a mysterious set of audio recordings sent to the podcast anonymously, depicting a couple experiencing unexplained noises during sleep. As Evie listens to the increasingly disturbing tapes, she becomes consumed by paranoia, the blurring line between recordings and her own reality. What makes Undertone interesting, though, is that it doesn't treat sound like a background element, it treats it kind of like a character. Almost every moment in the movie feels designed around what you're hearing. There are scenes where the visuals are actually pretty simple, but the audio is doing all the heavy lifting. You'll hear distant knocking or pacing, whispers that are barely there, low frequencies that you don't even consciously notice at first, but they make your body tense up anyway. Craziest part? Half the time you're not even sure if the sound you heard was a part of the movie or if it came from somewhere in the theater. Watching it in Dolby will do that to you, which is exactly the kind of psychological trick this film thrives on. But here's the thing that really caught me off guard. Halfway through the movie, I realized something else. Undertone isn't just using sound to scare you, it's manipulating the audience, because the sound design is constantly playing this game with you where you're not entirely sure if what you heard was intentional or if your brain just filled in the gap or what seems just like incoherent noise underneath something that was actually said. There are moments where the audio dips so low that you almost lean forward in your seat trying to hear it, and then suddenly something hits the mix. Not like a loud, cheap jump scare, just an uncontrollable, sometimes incoherent clip, like a noise your brain immediately recognizes as wrong. And when a theater full of people all react to that at the same time, you can feel it. That tension spreads through the room like a shockwave. And that's when I realized this movie wasn't only trying to scare us, it was making us become hyper aware of our listening sensibilities. Go home in silence after watching this in theater and you'll see what I'm talking about. Pay attention. What Undertone understands is that horror isn't just about what you show people, it's about what you make them imagine. Sound forces audience to participate. Your brain fills in the blanks, and whatever your brain comes up with is almost always worse than anything a filmmaker could put on screen. The email Justin and Evie received contained 10 sound files. They play them in order one at a time, leading up to the 10th file throughout several days as Evie's reality progressively becomes a night terror in real life. And towards the third act is where the hyperfixation of sound becomes prevalent. Now, if you're convinced all of that is creepy enough, there is another factor in which the opposite of sound is used as a weapon in this film, and it's been in our face the whole time. Because because not only do we need silence as a break from the tension, but it's also used in the anticipation of what comes next. I'm describing to you how undertone is a masterclass in how it uses sound and silence to crawl under your skin, but I'm keeping it major spoil free because I think it's something you horror fans would want to check out, especially in the theater if you haven't already. Undertone hit close to home for me because I saw myself in Evie. Growing up, I used to look up creepy versions of song or stories like the screech in the background of the song Love Roller Coaster, and watched faces morph on YouTube and researched real, mysterious, and brutal stuff in history, which doesn't say anything about me now. What are you talking about? But in the theater room, I felt excited. Like, finally, something that actually scared me. Now I'm wondering when I'll experience something like that again. I'm grateful I did, though. It was a good time. If you enjoyed this, why not like, comment, and subscribe? Let me know if you liked Undertone and your favorite part. It helps out the channel, and I'm trying to make partner again, so I'm gonna need all the engagement I can get with this one. Don't forget to hit the bell to get reminded of when I post again. Check out my last video on the 3 Faces of Evil here, where I go in depth on Gladys from Weapons, Billy Loomis from Scream, and our very own Art the Clown from Terrifier, where I go into depth into the types of evil they each represent. Appreciate you guys watching. Till the next one. Peace.